Well, hey everybody, thank you for having us. It's our first time doing a presentation with Green Plants for Green Building. So we do a lot of different webinars in education and the marketing space when it comes to interior plant design. And so we're really excited to be able to talk to you today all about SEO. I'm going to introduce ourselves a little bit more, but you'll see Emily on the call here too. She's our SEO director at ESM, and she'll be doing a whole lot of the education and explaining today. All right, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. So today we're going to talk, we have about an hour, and we're going to explain a little bit about who we are, being that this is a newer audience, and then why we're talking about SEO today. And then, of course, what you're really here for, which is the basics of SEO and all of the good stuff when it comes to the education of how to be found online when it comes to your search results. And then at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. If you have any questions, save them for the end, and we can have a pretty in-depth Q&A session. Typically, when it comes to SEO, there's a lot of questions, so feel free to write them down and ask them. Okay. So to start, I would like to take a moment to just introduce who we are. So we are ESM, which stands for Essential Source Marketing. And so we're the only marketing partner dedicated to the interior landscape industry, the interiorscape, interior plant design industry, whatever words we want to use. And so we focus only on your industry, and everything that we have is catered towards what we see works with different peers in the industry in different markets, and what service offerings really drive the impact in this industry and get you those qualified commercial leads. Being that this is a very nuanced industry, I've seen it time and time again where interiorscape companies have worked with marketing agencies in the past that didn't quite understand who their target market was or what they were doing. And you can really start to go in the wrong direction when you don't fully understand who that audience is. So we're privileged to really just focus on your industry. All of our team, there's a team of 7 of us. We have a background in marketing in our own individual areas, but we all apply it towards the plantscape industry and biophilic design in particular. Okay, so on the call today, you have myself and you have Emily. I'll take a quick moment to introduce myself, and then I'll let Emily introduce herself as well. So my name is April Frank. I have a background in marketing for the past decade or so, working with different marketing agencies, always in a strategic role. So I'm a strategy director and the founder of ESM. I started the business about 3 years ago, and it's been going really well. We have great clients. We work with dozens of different interiorscape companies in the US and now in the UK and in Europe as well. And so my background is leading multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns for well-known brands such as Papa John's, Bar3, Amazon Music. And before I started doing my own thing and really focusing on how do we apply all this strategic marketing knowledge to this industry. I grew up in the industry. My father started an interiorscape company back in the 80s, so I was always kind of born and raised in it and very familiar with it. So I'm really lucky to be able to be the bridge between both of those worlds when it comes to the interior plant design and the marketing world.
And I'm Emily. Again, just wanted to echo April's thanks of having us at this webinar. We're really excited to kind of be this educational piece of SEO and what that means. But I, at ESM, and am the SEO director. So I have been with ESM now for a little over 2 years, which has been such a wonderful experience. But I have over a decade of work in the SEO field in particular. I have worked in industries such as manufacturing. I've worked on big campaigns for Michelin tires and BMW and Milliken Manufacturing. That's kind of based here in the Southeast. And I have really been able to not just grow my experience in kind of the day in and day out of SEO, but also really been able to create kind of a strategy that I in particular use and then that we also employ at ESM when it comes to SEO. So it's really been awesome to kind of be able to be this multi-hat wearing person inside the interiorscape industry of strategy, execution, and then also education. So excited to talk in just a couple minutes about all about SEO.
Emily is a great educator. We love to educate here, and she drives great results for our clients too. So ask all the questions. Okay, so really quickly, just at ESM, how you can possibly work with us, just because again, everything is tailored towards what we see work in this industry. So it's related to how to think about your business. So our bread and butter is our phase clients. And this is where we do our active execution work and our strategy work when it comes to your brand, to your website, and then to optimization, being SEO, email marketing, web maintenance, blogging, and overall strategy and performance calls. And so I'll explain that in just a second. And then second, this is our lower tier offer where we have the Source Education membership. So if you enjoy different kind of educational opportunities such as this conversation we're going to have today, I recommend looking into the Source because we meet monthly with an intimate team, and you have direct access to our team to ask any sort of marketing questions when it comes to this industry. And we're happy to help. We have different resources like an SEO based keyword, social or keyword lists, social media templates, all those kind of things. And then lastly, if you ever just need help with your business when it comes to marketing and you want to talk about your website and do a website audit, you want to form a marketing plan for 2026, anything like that, know that we're always available for one-on-one consulting. Okay, so the phase clients, and I swear this ties into what we're going to be talking about today and why we're talking about it, is all focused on the marketing foundation. So what we see in this industry is that if you invest heavily into what we are going to call your marketing foundation, this is really where you're going to see the best return on investment. And as such, we have our whole business model as a marketing partner formulated around what we see actually works in this industry. And so, what it is that we see is that if you focus on first your brand and then your website, and then what we're going to call optimization, which includes SEO, what we're going to talk about today, blogging, which complements SEO, your email marketing, and your web maintenance from there, you can really see some great results that come from there. There are other avenues such as, your social media, your Google ads, your social media ads, in-person networking events. But really, when we're talking about digital marketing, these are the three things that we are harping on because we really see them move the needle the most when it comes to your business. So today we're going to talk about optimization a little bit more, and we're going to talk about SEO. So before I hand it off and Emily goes into the nitty-gritty of what SEO is, I want to explain why we're talking about SEO in terms of this industry and why it's so important. Okay, so when it comes to marketing, there are two acronyms. I mean, there's a lot of acronyms in the world of marketing, but there are two acronyms that I'm going to kind of explain today, and that is B2C versus B2B. And so these are two different business models, pretty much. So B2B or B2C stands for business to consumer, and it's talking about selling directly to the consumer. So a garden center is a B2C business mostly because they're selling directly to the everyday person, to those do-it-yourself plant enthusiast type of people. And then we have B2B, which is business to business, and that's what we're talking about, and that's where your business lies and what we're really focusing on. And that is selling from business to business. So we're focusing on getting you commercial lead generation and getting you in touch with the A&D community, with those business developers, or building developers, all those kind of commercial businesses that you're really going to want to talk to. And these are two completely different marketing strategies. They have similar mediums, being a website, social media, ads, all those kind of things, but the order of priority and the amount of quality on each of those mediums changes very differently between these. So a B2C business can get away with not really having a great website. Say they're on TikTok and that's where their whole audience is. They have a TikTok shop. They don't even have a website, and yet they're a multi-million dollar business. Great. That's wonderful. That's not what we're going to be talking about today because that's not how it's going to work for your business. So we're talking about B2B, and your website and your SEO is so important to what you do and really where you want to put a lot of emphasis on it. Okay, so why SEO matters in particular for your business. One, it is going to be, besides when we're talking about digital marketing in particular, you have in-person networking events and referrals and opportunities there. But when we're talking about your digital forefront, your storefront online, the number one place that people are going to find you is going to be through search results. They're really going to go on Google before they go on Instagram or before they hear a radio ad. It's really going to be about your search results. And so this is why SEO is so important, is because we find that it's the number one way where you're going to get net new users, brand new customers who are not familiar with your business. And then second, there's extremely high intent when it comes to SEO and when it comes to people on Google. They're already looking for your services. They know that they want your business. They're on there looking for an office plant care company. They're on there looking for a living wall expert. They're looking for, the holiday decor for offices type of information. So there's really high intent. Even if they are brand new to your business, they're already there looking for it, which is much different than a display ad that they might see on Google or an ad that they might see on Instagram. They're not actively looking. So you have a really engaged, high quality audience on search results, being on Google, DuckDuckGo, Bing, Yahoo, all those kind of things. And then lastly, long lasting benefits. So everybody always asks us if they can just jump straight to Google ads or they'll have search ads on. And why wouldn't they just go there? And there's definitely a time and a place for Google ads. But I'm always going to harp that you need to be investing into SEO because it's the gift that keeps on giving. When you stop paying for an ad, that ad goes away and you're no longer at the top. People also have a different impression when it comes to seeing and learning about your business for the first time via a sponsored ad versus an organic search result, especially in the world of AI, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. So when it comes to long-lasting benefits with SEO, we see blog posts that were written 2 years ago start to become one of the number one traffic generators for somebody's website today, kind of thing. So it's very, very important for your business. You do need a great website first, but SEO is the next step when it comes to the order of importance of what to look for when it comes to your marketing. Okay, so let's learn, what is SEO, the basics of SEO.
On that note, what is the basics of SEO? So I'm kind of going to take it from here, but again, we're going to have plenty of time for questions at the end because this can get nuanced. There are so many kind of different topics and different strategies inside of SEO. SEO gets technical really, really quickly. And there is a lot of information out there about SEO and just about SEO in general. So, kind of like the title and what y'all came to for this event is really the foundation of SEO. We're talking a little bit beyond just the basics. We're going to start off with basics and then hopefully have some building blocks up and then end with some things that maybe some suggestions or ideas or things that additions to your website that would be great. However, let's start off with this is my somewhat version of kind of a definition of SEO, which is really about proving your website's trustworthiness. And remember that term because we're going to be talking about that in just a couple minutes. So proving your website's trustworthiness to increase online visibility. And there's a lot that's kind of not said in this definition, but this is really the crux of it. It is creating websites by people for people, because that is always going to be Google's number one thing which is kind of plays into their algorithm that we're going to talk about, is a website that is created by a human for another human. Because at the end of the day, the search results and what we're trying to really get in front of is not just an ambiguous Google algorithm inside of a kind of general search engine, it really is about people that are looking for answers to their questions. And we want to show up for those people. So we are going to try to prove your website's trustworthiness today. But we're going to start with a few definitions first. So, kind of an overview. SEO stands for search engine optimization. I very rarely, I think if ever, say, hey, we're going to be talking about search engine optimization today because that's just a big mouthful. So we always say SEO, but just know that that's what it stands for. Keywords. This is another pretty big definition. Words or phrases, and that's also something to know because a lot of times when you say keyword, especially in relation to SEO, you tend to think maybe just one word, but it really encompasses words and phrases. A lot of searches these days are phrased as questions, and that question can also be a keyword. So you say keyword, but it also is kind of this encompassing title that could be anything from one word to a whole entire sentence. But those are the words and phrases people type into Google to find what they're looking for. Y'all are very familiar with keywords yourself because you utilize them on a probably daily basis if you're anything like me looking inside of Google for answers to your questions. Search intent. This is the reason behind somebody conducting a search inside of Google. Like April was talking about with B2C versus B2B, search intent is really, really big because, especially in the plant world, there's a lot of homeowners and there's a lot of DIY enthusiasts. And there's a lot of people who love plants that aren't necessarily your target audience. So when we're searching for keywords and looking up keywords, when we're looking for keywords valuable for a website such as yours, there's a lot of keywords that we have to think about the search intent or what the user would be searching for when they use that keyword. Another one that people ask me about all the time is backlinks. What are backlinks? Are backlinks important? How easy is it to get a backlink? A backlink is basically just another website that links to your own website. And this is really important. This is a great way to establish yourself as a website. They're really, really hard to get these days because oftentimes there's a lot of forums out there and people kind of can pay for websites to link back to your website and things like that. If you can get maybe a mention in a digital magazine that then links to your own, that's a really awesome backlink, things like that. But that's what a backlink is. And then Google Analytics / Google Search Console. And these are sites that are separate from your own site, but they're run by Google itself that tracks your website's visitor activity. So if you all don't have Google Analytics, and I would also add to that Google Search Console as well, they are two separate programs, but they're both run by Google and both very easy to integrate into a website. This is invaluable information for you all to have as business owners and just to kind of know what your visitors are doing on your website. So those are some kind of SEO general terms to know. We are now going to be talking about the 3 core principles of SEO. So, like I mentioned to start with, there are many, many different nuanced strategies inside of SEO. Can we boil it down? Well, we're going to try today. We're going to talk first about Google's only published algorithm comment, basically. A couple years ago, and then they continually update it with different information, but not that often. They released a kind of like a white paper or a blog post in a way on what their strategy for kind of beating the algorithm or showing up inside the algorithm was. It was just called EAT at the time. It was just EAT. And then maybe a year and a half ago, they added another E. So we're going to walk through what those are. But this is the only knowledge we have about Google's algorithm itself. So I'm sure y'all are, you've heard the terms like your Instagram algorithm or your Facebook algorithm, where it takes a lot of different pieces of information that it knows about you and your location and maybe your search history and your browsing patterns and things like that. And it customizes results directly for you. Well, Google has over 200 different factors likely that go into creating the best algorithm for their users to help people show up inside of that for. So it's again pretty huge. This is the information they released on it. So we can extrapolate a lot from this, which we're going to do. And we're going to talk about what all these three things mean and then what that means for your own website, which plays into our on-page strategy, which is factors on your website itself that we can directly control. And then your off-page strategy, which are factors that are off your website, but still a part of your digital presence that we can influence, but not exactly directly control. So let's talk about eat. And I don't know, it might be lunchtime for some of you, so I apologize if this is going to make you hungry in any way. We'll try not to. So the EAT strategy, again, this is Google's own algorithm strategy for kind of beating and showing up inside of Google search results. So it stands for experience, expertise, authority, and then trustworthiness. With trustworthiness, which it's why I put trustworthiness inside of our initial definition of what SEO is, because Google has said that if you don't have any of the other three, experience, expertise, or authority, but you have a trustworthy website, that is going to be the most important kind of point inside of all of this. So all of these super, super important, and we're going to talk through what they are and kind of what to do with this information. But if you don't have a trustworthy website inside of Google's eyes, then you might not do super well. So all that to caveat saying all these are super important, but Google themselves has said that trustworthiness is the most important. So let's start with it kind of experience. What does this mean? What does this look like for a website? So experience is really showcasing your brand's firsthand experience with the industry that you're in. So a really great way to do this is to show that experience to both Google and your target audience. And one of the ways, there are many different ways that you can kind of show your experience in the industry, but one of the ways is really by adding reviews into your own website. So you're probably very familiar with customer reviews and client reviews and things like that. And those are kind of, especially when it comes to like your Google business profile, a really, really great way to boost that invisibility and help out your brand, basically. It's going to be essentially the same thing inside of the website itself, inside of your website. So how Google ranks websites is they
Yeah.
have all of these
Yeah.
little bots that go through the website and they scan and crawl them on a fairly regular basis that reads the content from the photos to the words on your website. So adding in just a testimonial, a couple testimonials, keeping them fresh and updated is a really great way to show your experience to Google that other people are saying, other trusted third-party people are saying that, hey, these people are great at what they do. We loved the design or the installation or the holiday installation or the living wall that they created for us. And that's going to signal to Google that, okay, from other people, this brand, this website, this company, they have experience in this field because other people are verifying that. So that's kind of what experience means. Now, expertise might sound kind of like the same thing, but there are some nuances to this, which is again why Google added the second E inside of the EEAT strategy. So this is sharing your depth of knowledge on the specifics of the industry through things such as blog posts and case studies, maybe PDFs or white pages, and even your general website content. So maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even up to 5 years ago now, there was this trend of the designs of websites, in particular, maybe smaller websites or even just landing pages, was the less words on a page, the better. We want it minimal. We want it very user friendly, and we want to be able to easily scan things and digestible information. And that is still a very, very good thing to have. You absolutely have to have a well-designed, good user experience website that's not just really crowded with text and looks good and things like that. But also, if you don't have content depth on your website, Google isn't going to be able to tell that you have expertise in your field. And what you're really trying to do is show Google and also hopefully the people that land on your website inside of Google that you all know what you're talking about, that you're industry leaders, that you're good at what you do, that you have a lot of information and knowledge and experience and expertise on this industry in particular, which I know all of you do because I've talked to so many of you in this industry, and your knowledge about it, of plants and biophilia, just it blows me away every single time. So figuring out how to showcase that in a digital form on your website, like I put here via blog posts and case studies, is a really, really good thing. And that's just going to help you out in Google's eyes so much more. The next one, the A here, is authoritativeness. And this is really positioning your brand and website as a leading authority on a topic or an industry. And again, this plays really well into the expertise and experience as well. It's basically just thinking through how can you become the go-to source for accurate, which is that's kind of the biggest nuance of this point. It's accurate information in the industry, especially with the rise of AI and AI searches and AI generated content. How can you, again, going back to that website created by people for people, how can you become the accurate authority on topics in your industry? On, whether it's plant maintenance and why you all are the best at what you do inside of that niche of our field, or maybe it's on living wall design, or maybe it's on biophilic design, and you are truly the leading expert and in your kind of niche and in your field for any one of these multiple topics inside the industry. That's what Google cares about. And at the end of the day, I think we're getting to a point where that's what people, when they're searching for websites and actually clicking into websites these days, that's what they're looking for as well, especially in this B2B space. And then the last one, like we talked about, the most important, trustworthiness. So this is really setting up your website for success through, again, accurate and consistent information across the board. It's making sure your site is secure. This is probably something that you all already have, but if you look at the website URL up at the top, when you type it into the search bar, it should have HTTPS. That is just a secure site. That's kind of a non-negotiable for Google. If your site isn't secure, then especially if you have like a contact form on your site, whether or not you're asking for critical or sensitive information, that's still something that Google's going to kind of negatively rank you for if your site isn't secure. They want to see that you have a Google business profile that's robust and is updated and has reviews and stars and things like that, even new photos. Your address, your phone number, your hours are consistent across the board. Sourcing citations inside of blog posts. There are continuing to be studies and really cool white pages and a lot of resources out there about, especially when it comes to the benefits of biophilic design and things like that. And sourcing those inside of your blog post, that might sound very academic, but it actually really shows Google that you are a trustworthy website. And then just verifiable information about who you are as a brand and a business across your entire digital presence. So that means if you have social media accounts, if you have your Google business profile, if you have a LinkedIn for your company, if you have a website, all your information across the board is accurate and can be verified by Google. So that's EAT. That is Google's kind of published algorithm and strategy. So from there, we can kind of look at both our on-page and off-page strategies of what we do. Now, on-page, again, like I said, these are things that we can directly control. So we can control our brand, like April talked about kind of at ESM. Our basis is we always start with the branding and web design. Web design plays into user experience, so how people are interacting with your website and how important it is. And then just making sure that the content and the meta content, so meta content is things such as your page titles and page descriptions, as well as alt tags on your images. These are all places where we can make sure that it is accurate, engaging, informational content about your website itself or blog posts or whatever it might be. But then also that's a really great place to kind of add keywords into your website as well. Off page, these are things that we can't directly control, but we can influence them, and they are still wrapped up in this Google strategy. So that's link building, like we just talked about backlinks. That's reviews, both in Google Business Profile as well as on your own website, and even in maybe other digital publications across the industry. Social media is another great one that really, really helps kind of boost your kind of brand visibility. We're seeing more and more social media profiles being pulled inside of Google as search results itself, even short content videos and things like that, as well as your Google Business Profile. That's a really valuable one to, again, just make sure is accurate, consistent information across the board. Okay, we are going to kind of change just a little bit here because I didn't want to leave this out without talking about SEO and AI, because we know that this is something that is happening. We all, I think, have come to terms with the fact that AI is here, and we can put our head in the sand all we want, but especially myself as someone who has to stay up to date with all of the trends of the internet. AI is something that is here to stay. So there's a few things we know and a few things we don't know about AI, but be assured that the things that we don't know, so myself as an SEO strategist, the things I don't know about AI, no one else knows. So very likely, if you're kind of working on an AI optimization campaign or something like that, and you don't know some things, your competitors probably don't know them either. So we do know that AI, how they're ranking and how they're pulling in different pieces of content into different AI programs, such as maybe ChatGPT, that's changing all the time, constantly. It's changing. They don't even have like a consistent algorithm yet. They don't have consistent usage yet. So that's probably, who's to say how long that's going to be changing, but it is changing, and it's changing quickly. So we can only do what we can do with the information in front of us right now. We have constantly emerging features. Google, I'm sure you all have seen, there's all the AI featured snippets nowadays inside of just a Google search. Not even to say outside of like a traditional Google search, inside of the LLMs, such as maybe Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. There's constantly emerging features, and they're constantly scraping the internet as a whole to make sure that they're pulling the most consistent, reliable information as possible. So, because of that, a couple things to note: that content quality matters. Not only the accuracy of that content on your own website, but also the depth of that content. AI also favors updated websites. And this doesn't mean that every single day you need to be inside your website updating something. However, this does mean that monthly, something needs to be updated inside your website. Pieces of content need to be added. Of photos maybe need to be changed around. More content maybe on a service page or a new page added or something like that. That really, really prompts both AI programs as well as Google that, hey, this website is updating consistently, that it's accurate, that it's reliable, that it is a website that we want to continually show over and over and over inside of these programs. From a creation point of view, as a lot of you maybe are faced with the challenges of, I don't have time to update website content consistently. Maybe I'll just put a blog post topic into AI and have them spit it out to me, and then I can put that on my website. It's not a reliable way to create content. That's actually a really, really good way for Google to kind of penalize your website. There is a lot of debate about how much actually needs to be changed, but as a whole, I myself, we have a policy at ESM that no full bodies of content are ever created with AI. If you need maybe some help writing a basic outline to start with or something like that, that's a really good way to use AI as a tool, but it should never be a copy paste right from a AI program into your website. And then kind of last thing to say on AI, visibility is great, but we still also have to prioritize that traditional Google search is still king. We like to show up inside of AI, and a lot of marketing houses these days are only focusing on AI. I am of the opinion that traditional Google search is still exceptionally important, that it is still king, that it is going to be around for a very long time. So it's a great thing to figure out the strategy for and play around with and try to make sure that we're kind of staying on the forefront of all that, but also know that if right now your website maybe isn't inside of any of these AI programs, that's not the end of the world. You're not necessarily losing out on wide swatches of traffic because you are not showing up inside of AI. So it is important to make sure we have visibility in that by all the things we just mentioned. However, also know that a traditional Google search and strategy is still very, very important. So the last thing I'm going to end on is just some easy SEO wins for your own website. And then we'll kind of launch it into a Q&A to finish out our time together. So these are kind of just compilations of things that we've talked about in maybe a little bit more digestible format. So make sure your address, phone number, and name across your digital presence is consistent. So again, this doesn't mean just your website. It means your social media and your social media bios. This means your LinkedIn kind of across the board, even maybe for employees that work for your company. It means that your Google business profile needs to have the address that's also shown on your website. So maybe if you've moved recently, do a double check of those to make sure that your address on your website is up to date, as well as all of these other digital places that you might show up. Because if something isn't quite accurate, then again, Google will know and they will notice that. And then that can have a negative effect on your rankings. A big one here that sometimes in different industries and in different clients I see is just making sure your contact page is easily accessible and that the form works. Obviously, one of the reasons that we are putting such a high emphasis on SEO in this industry is to generate leads and to make sure that your target audience not only knows about you, but also can easily contact you. This goes back to user experience and website design, which is something that we can directly control. So it's kind of an easy win here, but just making sure that your contact form can be easily located in your kind of main navigation of your website, and that when someone submits a form, that it actually goes to the right and proper place and you're getting that information. Again, updating content monthly on your website, super, super important. Sometimes even just a photo change can help. That change in and of itself does signal to Google that, hey, something changes. We need to put this website in a queue to re-rank it because they did change something. So sometimes even a photo change can definitely help. I'm going to kind of caveat that by the next two. Client testimonials and a blog post, though, however, are two of the greatest ways to really get that content updated on your website. Because of the nature of a blog post, you can create however many blog posts you want in a month, and that's a much more easy way to be able to add content updates instead of always feeling like, oh, I have to add a new service page. I have to rewrite the language on my about page. I have to create a new tagline or put a new header on my homepage. Well, a blog post, you can kind of take an industry topic or something you're very passionate about or you know a lot about, or you have clients asking about in person and you want some frequently asked questions inside of a blog post format. That's a really, really great way to keep your content updated, to be able to easily make those updates and make those changes that again signal to Google that you have made content updates and so your site is ready to be re-ranked. And again, client testimonials, a really, really great way to show your expertise on your website. And again, just a great place to kind of add and update those that content on your website. So I know this was a lot of information kind of all thrown at you at once, and I have been monologuing for quite a bit of time now, but I think we have about 15 minutes or so left. And if y'all have any questions about any of the things we talked about or nuances of your website that you want my maybe thoughts on or something like that, please let me know. Now's the time to kind of talk through that a little bit. Happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
An easy way to ask questions would be you can write them in the chat or on Zoom, you should be able to raise your hand or you can just come off mute and ask away.
Yeah, that is that is very true. I will say if any of y'all have any questions about specifically Google Analytics or Google Search Console, just kind of how to get those set up and how to integrate them into your website, it's not very hard to do. There is just sometimes some nuances that you need to know, especially depending on what your site is built on. So we can, if it's helpful after this, also send out kind of like an information sheet about how to get those added to your site.
We have our first question. Do you have any experience with AI ranking optimization tools like Otterly?
Yes. I don't personally only utilize just AI ranking tools. I have heard of Otterly. The one thing I will say with any of kind of these third-party tools that are out there is you can do a fine-tooth comb through their entire site and you will never actually find out how they're gathering the data to show you. And this is pretty common. My husband and I were talking about this. My husband is a web developer. So he has a lot of knowledge about these things as well. And we were talking about this, and he is very, very skeptical as well, from somebody who's kind of on the technical side of the industry and has seen the back end of how a lot of these sites, such as Otterly, work. Not to say they're not trustworthy. That is to say, I do feel like you have to take the information that they're showing you with a grain of salt. One other note on that, um, because this industry in particular is relatively hyper localized, meaning you kind of have one demographic that you're focusing on, tools such as Otterly don't understand that. And so they're not necessarily, they're going to show you maybe like nationwide and be like, you need to be better for the whole of the United States because of, XYZ. And in reality, a lot of the data points they're leaving out because they're focused on nationwide really do apply to your businesses because the interiorscape industry, kind of generally is fairly localized. So those are my only kind of thoughts on a program like Otterly. Helpful somewhat, but I know y'all, it's a paid for program as well. So would not put my 100% stamp of approval on it.
Something I'll add to that too is when you're thinking about SEO, this kind of goes back to that B2C versus B2B. And, we're giving you all these tools. Blogging is so important. Blogging is helping with AI search results. If you want to appear in ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, all those kind of things, we're seeing that blogging is one of the things that we can tell is helping to rank in those platforms. When it comes to tools and nationwide recommendations, remember who you're talking to. And you don't want to be writing blogs about how to take care of a monstera. You want to be talking about different reasons why moss walls look amazing or are beneficial in offices. You need to be thinking about who you're talking to when you're writing and when you're optimizing. And so, you are the human, be the human when you're getting suggestions and when you're looking at keywords and you're looking at data. Because we have clients that we've taken over their SEO efforts and we're having to undo a lot of work that was done by a different agency or a different marketing person in the past who started writing all of these plant enthusiast type of information, and they start to become the leading plant education in Asia because they're talking about air plants and they start to rank for a completely different audience. And once that starts to happen, Google, it's a lot of work to undo that because Google will start to take that and then they think that you want that and then they start to go that way. So be smart and be careful and always know who you're talking to when it comes to SEO.
Absolutely. We have previously worked with an SEO website expert who had emphasized putting city, state, and all of our website headline, body copy, etc. I really feel like this was for the robots and not for human users. Is this very helpful for SEO purposes? That sounds like, and I'm not sure if it truly was every single title and in all the body copy, it does sound a bit like keyword stuffing, which is not something that we ever recommend. Definitely, that would be something that is written probably more for bots. It is exceptionally helpful to have your location information in your website somewhere, address, etc. In my kind of strategy when it comes to really honing in on a location, especially if you're trying to maybe add or broaden out into maybe a little bit larger location and you have new cities or regions that you're kind of looking at. Inside of blogs in particular, there are easy ways to add in talking about the best biophilic design trends in Denver and things like that. That is very organically worked into your website copy. That's a really good way to signal to Google where you're located, and they will pick up on that information. It's not necessary to have it kind of broadcast in every single headline throughout your entire website. What are your suggestions for identifying the ideal keywords we should be trying to compete for? Because what we think are good words might be niche buzzwords largely used by us professionals, but not necessarily used by clients when searching. And that's such a great question. And that is so true. We see that a lot. In particular, the one that I see that with a lot is kind of in the industry, it's faux and fake plants. And clients actually are really searching for artificial plants. And I know the artificial plants from y'all's perspective is, ooh, don't really love to use that word, but that's what your audience is searching for. A great place to start with this actually is Google Search Console. So if you have Search Console already up and running for your website, awesome. You can go in there and you can see what you're actually ranking for. And you can use that as a jumping off point. Say you see your ranking maybe number 42 for interior plant design, wherever you're located or something like that. You can say, okay, this is a keyword I really, really want to focus on because I'm already ranking for it, but I'm not ranking for it super great. So what I want to do is I want to take that keyword and I want to maybe create a really in-depth blog post about using that keyword. I want to maybe work that into the body copy of a service page that I have specifically talking about that keyword. Another great place to see, and these are all free ways to get keywords. I utilize SEO programs that when I do my keyword research are pretty hefty, but they're not, I would say, necessary for people who are not keyword expert or SEO experts or strategists in particular. Another really great free kind of program is Google Keyword Planner. That is kind of inside Google Ads. You have to be careful sometimes because that is kind of ad specific, but it also has a tie over with organic search. So things like the monthly search volume and competition surrounding that, which you'll see is not necessarily always 100% accurate, but it does give you a kind of a good piece of information. So what I would say is just start with some of the industry buzzwords that you will use anyway: interior plant design, office plant maintenance, and or phrases or words that you've heard your clients say if they're referencing you. Start there, and that'll give you a pretty good jumping off point for keywords. Okay, can you please recommend a reasonably priced software to track your positions in organic search and ideally also the AI citations? I would say a reasonably priced one is going to be Ubersuggest. That's a relatively reasonably priced one. You do, I believe, have to pay, of course, for an add-on to get that AI information. Um, but as a third party, that one's going to be um, relatively, again, all of these third-party data collection programs, I can't emphasize enough, they're not going to be 100% accurate, but they basically are all we have. So we're never, ever, ever, just because data, you can't get clean, 100% clean data like given to you, especially just the nature of like search. It's going to be accurate, but you very likely might see some differences between what you're seeing in Google Search Console versus analytics versus maybe Uber Suggest. But that would be a pretty good one. I do believe you have to pay an additional price for AI citations. But you can, inside of Google Analytics, now see where like from what AI programs people are visiting your website from. So you can see that, for instance, maybe like in the last 28 days, ChatGPT drove 10 sessions to your website. You can see that information now, and that's just going to start to kind of increase inside of Google Analytics. They change Google Analytics a lot, by the way. But you can see that. You can't see how you're actually showing up. You can just see how many people came from those programs to your website, which is arguably better information anyway, because it doesn't, I mean, it's great to show up inside of ChatGPT for what are the best interior design or interior plant design companies in Greenville, South Carolina. But if no one's like clicking on that information to get to you, then like that's fine. Like that's fine. That's awesome. You're visible, but really it's about the clicks. So maybe starting with Google Analytics and seeing if anybody is driving traffic from those platforms. Great questions, everybody.
Any more questions we might have? Well, I think
Hey,
that
this is Josh, April. Thank you so much, Emily. Really appreciate hearing you guys talk on this again. Speaking of the localized nature of our businesses, and this is probably going to expose how little I know about it, but does it make sense to invest time on the maps, like the Google Maps page? Do people go there to search for service providers, or would you find that to be more of, kind of a residential services place to go?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of great anything come out of doing anything on Google Maps. You can show up in it's called the map pack inside of Google. So sometimes up at the top or off to the side inside of Google during a search, you'll see the actual map itself with some smaller businesses listed off to the side. That information is typically pulled from a Google business profile. So I would say having a well-optimized, accurate location Google business profile is going to help you more often than not show up inside of that kind of Google map area. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, of course.
SEO is such a technical and nuanced topic, but it's really helpful to explain some of the foundation pieces of it so you can at least think about your website in the right mindset. So I'm happy that everybody's been enjoying it.
Yeah. And great questions. Thank you so much.
If there's any more questions, feel free to ask. But otherwise, thank you so much for having us. We love to teach and we love to work with this industry, obviously. So if you need anything, feel free to reach out. These are our emails over here. We are accepting phase clients for 2026. So if you're interested in a new website, having really great SEO done by professionals, we'd be happy to work with you. And then you can also join our educational membership, The Source, if you're interested in just kind of doing more marketing on your own, but wanting more guidance like this. That's open to anybody and everybody. And then, like I mentioned, one-on-one consulting. If you ever just want questions or help with anything to do with marketing, we have a lot of different people on our team, branding experts, obviously SEO experts like Emily, that we can tap and kind of talk to different aspects of your business. So we love this industry and we love to help. So thank you guys.